economic engagement. But no matter how people look at it, no matter how much the voices of reason in both countries want to salvage the situation, I think we ought to frankly acknowledge the fact that the two major countries in the world are going to have a uneasy relationship, featuring heavy competition, deep mistrust, and strong antagonism and limited cooperation. And we are in it for the long haul. 2 months ago, I interviewed Professor John Mearsheimer, a renowned IR theorist from the United States. We examined similarities and differences between the current situation and the Cold War in history. But given his theoretical framework, it was hardly surprising that the bluntly suggested that we are already in the Cold War. Indeed, his assessment is echoed by many realists in China who also view the international system as an iron cage. What really struck me was a stinging remark on how the pandemic has aggravated, not ameliorated the situation as optimists would have assumed. They used to say that China and the United States could put away the differences if there's to be an alien invasion. In a way, the coronavirus is the alien, but it hasn't stopped the bad from getting worse. And people used to argue against the prospect of the Cold War by pointing to greater economic interdependence, lower likelihood of proxy conflicts, absence of diametrically opposed ideologies. While many conditions still hold true, it is alarming to see new realities being actively shaped up by Cold War warriors in the Trump administration. For example, the nature of the rivalry between China and the United States has nothing to do with ideologies. Anyone visiting China is able to spot the endless differences between this country and those that belong to the former Soviet bloc. But this hasn't stopped the likes of Pompeo from singling out and demonizing the CPC. I think this is a highly calculating, well-engineered move aimed at portraying the rivalry as an ideological showdown, thereby reviving the West's fear of Soviet communism, which they hope will work as a call to arms against China. And this is highly dangerous, as it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy, making the already thorny relationship much harder to manage. I think what's even more groups and figures that were previously considered unorthodox, eccentric, and edgy, even by the American standard. I think that's the nicest way of putting it. By Chinese standard, they're the clowns, traitors, and cultists. But they are now openly invited into policy consultation and decision-making processes, and crowding out seasoned veterans and advocates for engagement. So much that to the extent that there's no bona fide China expert on the team. And the establishment elite knows very well that deep-seated bias and twisted views are hardwired into the minds of those people, but somehow they believe what they can get from the marriage of convenience outweighs the cost of making unsound judgment. And that is insanity. Because though fraught with difficulties, China and US relationship is the single most consequential bilateral relationship in the world. And China understands the future would not be smooth sailing. It anticipates more easily agitated United States, and we are ready to open up even more to create a level playing field to compete and cooperate with the United States in providing domestic prosperity and global public goods. But this should be a fair game between us and the bald eagle. It's not a dirty fight with snakes and rats. And by and large, I think China has moved in the right direction, particularly its engagement with the vast developing world to facilitate the making of a community of shared future, which is woven together not by abstract ideologies, but through bonds of partnership on socio-economic matters. And we must admit that we will encounter profound challenges going forward, not least because the US tries to sell a horror story of China to the world. And in this regard, China suffers great setbacks because it doesn't command the same level of soft power the United States enjoys. Therefore, it's hard to get its point across cultural boundaries. But in the end, I believe actions speak louder than words. And looking ahead, I think China should keep its head cool, not be discouraged by the spiking curve of hostility in some parts of the world, most notably the Five Eyes countries, where the top diplomats in the US seem to favor confrontation over diplomacy. But the harder they try to drive a wedge between the Chinese people, the state, and the party, the firmer we should stand together, not only within China, but also to reach out to the people of the global South, to those in the West, and particularly to those in the United States, because they are the ones who has the most to lose in the new Cold War. And America is struggling with its response to its own decline. There are voices arguing for managed decline, let go of the hegemonic empire, return to a normal nation state, accept a more democratic, more pluralist, more multilateral world order. But there are also voices of reactionary rage, just refusing to go gentle into the good night. The conversation I had with Professor Mearsheimer left me with an impression that even people with immense intellect could lack the faculty to reimagine the world not along lines of domination and hierarchy, but of nexus and centrality. And China has no intention to replace or succeed American hegemony, it doesn't want to sit on top of others and push its way around. It's a pity that the United States and by extension the West are too absorbed in their own historical experience to understand the different sets of norms that has shaped China's behavior for millennia. And today we're gathered here to condemn those who have no scruples about dragging entire humanity into division and conflict. They may hold sway today inside the Beltway, but remember, we are many and they are few. Let's harden our hearts and renew our faith, not in miracles or supernatural beings, but in people. Unite together, we can move the